Good morning, everyone. I'm David Bruce. I'm the VP of Technology for Data2GO. I'm here with Victoria Kleinman. She's our sales manager. And we are going to be presenting Data2GO as well as our failover continuity product, which is DataPro2Go. So who we are. Data2GO, we've come together, and what we've done is we saw a need in the market for a company that was able to produce a platform that interconnects all of the cellular carriers into one single pane of glass. So we got all the carrier contracts, and we were able to integrate all of the carriers into our purpose-built platform, which we built from the ground up. What this enables us to do is offer wireless connectivity to our customers with the best carriers in mind wherever their location is within the US. So we may have customers in one zip code with different addresses. It doesn't mean they have the same carriers at each location. So we're able to really get granular with our approach for our service offerings. Our DataPro2Go solution is a hardware and airtime bundled solution. What we're able to do is pair the best carriers with our hardware solutions, which we'll go into a little bit more deeper later in the presentation on what type of hardware we supply. But it gives the customers the ability to utilize our connectivity in several different ways. They can use us for primary connectivity. If they have a pending construction where they may not have a wireline service available yet due to building construction or permitting, or say it's a kiosk, we're able to deploy our solutions using our LTE service for connectivity. We are typically used for failover. So if a customer has an already existing wireline connection and they need to have a secondary connection go into their premise, we're able to supply that secondary connection that's out of the reach of someone digging up their fiber line or some kind of localized event that may disrupt their internet connectivity. So we're able to circumvent those issues and allow for that internet connectivity to persist to that site. Another more interesting technology that we have coming up that we've seen more and more deployments for is SD-WAN. Everyone's moving to SD-WAN solutions where they're able to utilize lower cost connections and aggregate them with their appliance. We're able to have that failover capability as well as a secondary connection into that SD-WAN appliance where we're able to provide connectivity in the event that they're having wireline connectivity issues. So who really needs failover? Everyone needs failover, and that's not just our company pitch, it's really true. One of the Mitel reps who was just up here mentioned that everything is cloud-based now. No one has equipment in their closets anymore on-prem. It doesn't exist. Everyone's moving to cloud-based solutions. You can have the best cloud-based solution, but if you can't access it because your internet's down, you have no productivity. And that's really where we see our fit come in. We're able to keep your credit card transactions moving, your voice over IP, and your cloud-based applications. Why we're different from mobility. We use a fixed wireless product. Can it be used in a mobile application? Absolutely, but what we see is for most of our business customers, they have offices that don't move. So we're able to offer a fixed wireless solution. Now, back to our carrier agreements and our ability to have a connection used with all of our carrier feeds. We have a customer here who had 4 locations in Miami. They're actually using 4 different carriers because the locations don't use just one carrier. So going out and getting a Verizon contract for yourself or an AT&T contract for yourself may not do you the best good because you might not have the best carrier coverage with AT&T or Verizon or whoever at all of your locations. That's where we come in. We have all those carrier agreements. We take the complexity out of this, and we're able to supply the best carrier for each location. We look up every single address, and we make sure that we're putting the best carrier in each location.
Okay, so it's a really lucrative commission structure. As Dave mentioned, if you go directly to the carriers, you're typically getting a one-time payout. It doesn't benefit TCG, and it doesn't benefit you guys just getting a one-time payment. With us, obviously, you get the residuals, and TCG does 100% pass-through. So we have 2 different options, a CapEx option and an OpEx option, depending on however your customer is financially structured for their budget. So we have the failover as a service, which is the $59.95. And that includes 1 gig. We use a PEP link device on site, that'd be our 1 Max Mini. and that includes the dual SIM cards in the back. So what we do is when we do, like as Dave mentioned, when we do look up a location, we look at the two best carriers and we provision the SIM cards in the back of the PetBlink. One's active, one's passive, so you're not charging your customers for two. So, and then we get paid, you guys get paid out on 100% for our overage coverages now as well. And it's literally, it's quicker commissions, it's a more transactional kind of sale, because a lot of times what I find when I work with partners is they have customers that like need it right away, or they're having an issue or an outage and they need something. We can get things turned around typically 24 hours, I would say.
Usually less.
Yeah, usually less than that. So we can come in handy in that regard, and it's a very cost-effective solution to have businesses running. So we have the dual SIMs, easy failover, and quick deployments. So we can get devices out the next day, and you guys get paid right away.
Yep. And to add on to what Victoria is saying about the dual SIM capability, what we find is if there's an issue, it's typically at the installation point, and that's where that dual SIM capability really takes hold. We're able to remotely switch over to that secondary carrier if your installer is having an issue with getting that first carrier up. Say there's some kind of building construction that we can't account for, then we're able to remotely switch over to that secondary carrier, and we find that we have a 99% plus success rate with those two SIM cards availability without us having to use any kind of external type of additional accessories like a signal booster or outdoor mounted antenna or some other type of solution, which we can certainly assist with, but we find that this is the best approach that we found with being as minimal as possible with our installation steps. So, to our devices. These are the PetBlink devices that we deploy. We can utilize anywhere from the BR1 Mini, which is at your top left, to what's called a EPX box, which has up to 16 SIM cards. So we can really right-size our solution for your customers. Our typical deployment for branch offices is that Mini in the corner. It can have a throughput speed of 40 to 60 megabits per second with the LTE advanced model. We also, with our larger units, with the 16 radios, I mean, we can get over a terabyte of throughput with these devices. So we can really right-size the solution for your deployments. So how does it work? We have two different types of topologies that we typically integrate with. We have the topology on the left where a customer already has a network in place, say they have a Sonic wall or a Meraki or some other device that's managing their network or an SD-WAN appliance. We're able to plug into it as another WAN connection using our LTE service. So we would just be in pass-through mode. We would hand off our IP address to that piece of equipment. Very easy installation. For other customers you may have that may just have a DSL or cable modem on site. They don't have an advanced router that allows you to be able to utilize a failover connection. Our equipment can actually be used as that edge router piece of equipment where it will manage the wireline connection and then be able to fail over to the cellular connection in the event of an outage. So we can really deploy both ways. We'll ask you a series of questions to determine how we stage the devices. We're going to pre-configure our equipment so that way it's as most plug and play as possible once it gets received on site.
Okay, so this is what I was talking about before. We have, so the failover as a service is the OpEx model, which is more lucrative, honestly, for the partners as well. It includes 1 gigabit, and we also do shared data pooling. So if you have 10 sites, that's 10 gigs shared across carriers, and then across all the locations. And mostly we're used for failover. So typically, it's not going to be all 10 sites that are down. You know, so you have like a backup plan to mitigate overage charges on the customer's end. And then this is just our basic pricing on the left for the OpEx option. If they want to go CapEx, it could be month to month. And then we have prepaid plans for each one of them. And then these are the devices, as Dave mentioned, the Mini, the LTE, and then the failover license and the LTA failover license. So in a nutshell, that's basically our pricing, and then any overage charges are $19.95 per gig. And we can also, in our portal, set up thresholds so that we can also mitigate, overage charges so that they're approaching what's it, 65% utilization and 95% utilization on the circuit, they'll get proactive notifications via email.
Yep. What we also do is we pool together like plans. So if you have a multi-site customer who has carriers with AT&T and Verizon, for example, we're able to cross-carrier pool. So if you have 5 customers on a 1 gig plan, you have a 5 gig pool total. If they add another line, then you have 6 gigs. It dynamically grows with your customer base, and we're able to allow some protection. If one site goes over, you can borrow from the pool and not have to pay overage charges.
Yeah.
Question.
So with the plan only, you've got to buy the hardware?
That would
Correct.
be with the hardware purchase up front. Yeah.
Right. And to note, if a customer has a Cradle Point or some other piece of equipment already on site, we do sell the plan only, so you can bring your own device as well. We have different features that we have for our devices. We have static IP available. I know a lot of our customers require a static IP to have that bidirectional port flow and the static entry for the address. So we do offer that for AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and US Cellular. We also offer the LTE Advanced model, which has the throughput speeds up to 60 megabits per second.
That's up and down?
Yes. Yes. So that is the Cat 6 model, and there is actually a newer model that just came out recently, which is the Cat 18 model, which can have a throughput of 100 plus megabits per second. It's something that Peplink just released about a month ago. We haven't really seen much traction with it, but I like to call it LTE 4.5. It's really on the way to the 5G speeds. It's pretty interesting technology. So who requires the static IP? Typically voice over IP customers. We find that the bidirectional ability for porting is necessary because the phones can make outbound calls, but they may not be able to receive inbound calls. We'll be able to work with you guys to determine if you need a static IP depending on your service. It really depends on the cloud hosting provider.
So are you saying that in areas where T-Mobile has the best coverage, you're not able to get a static IP with T-Mobile?
Not today. We're actually working with them. They have a new offering for static IP. It's just not enabled for us yet. They're enabling their resellers, but what we're seeing today is they're really gearing up for the merger, and once that occurs, then they're going to be able to support the static IP offering. We do have additional accessories, so when we're vetting out your customers, we're going to ask some qualifying questions to determine if we need to provide any additional accessories so we get the installation right the first time. We typically recommend the higher gain antennas. These are something that screw into the Peplink. You can see them, it's the first image there on the left. It gives you some additional installation ease because you have a 9-foot cable as well as a magnetic base. For larger buildings or warehouses or big box stores, we'll typically recommend the signal booster there just because the signal typically has issues being able to be, there's like signal quality issues that happen just because it's a large concrete and steel building. That will typically overcome the issues. And then we also have PoE injectors, which allow you to move the device to locations that may not have a power source, such as a rafter of a building or ceilings. And you can run your power over Ethernet.
So target customers, multi-location. So not only can we do cross-carrier pooling, we're really making a big push to do multiple locations for failover because that's typically our strongest suit is with the multiple locations, whether they're smaller or larger. We love multiple locations. And then the cross-carrier pooling is really one of the major benefits of that. And also it's a centralized management system for them as well. And I have a lot of partners that they're like, we only prefer AT&T or we prefer only Verizon, but they can't get access in like either it's a rural area and they're not available. So we look up, since we have access to all the 5 major MNOs, we have access to all of them. So we give you dual redundancy in addition to if they already have a primary. So basically, everybody, like Dave said, everybody needs some sort of failover, especially with security nowadays. A lot of companies are required for compliancy purposes to have a disaster recovery plan. Anything is there as an on-demand option, so if somebody's moving, if they're waiting for a circuit to be installed, Or if they just can't get connectivity, period, and they want to use this as primary for a smaller office, we can do that, and we can turn it up very quickly. Yeah, anyone that needs WAN optimization for mission critical applications, anybody that needs to have their POS systems up and running, especially all in the VoIP area as well, or third-party cloud-based applications too. Okay, so these are some of the tools that we have available. This is on our public-facing website. You simply go in there. It takes literally like 30 seconds to submit. You just plug in the TCG agent ID, which is there, and then you'll see the quote within 24 hours, if not sooner. Typically, it's sooner. It depends on the complexity of the quote, but yeah, typically it's sooner than that. I love the ROI calculator. So anyone that has multi-site customers, this is a very valuable tool. It's a sliding scale that you can plug in how many locations, what their annualized revenue is, what their service level agreement is, and it'll show you like right away, within seconds, of what the return on investment is. So it's good to present to C-levels, to any CFOs, any executives. It's a really valuable tool. And especially if you do any kind of telecom expense management work, any kind of auditing, instead of looking through a bunch of Excel spreadsheets and going through phone bills, this will save you a lot of time. And then that's our agreement and partner program with TCG. And again, we give, you guys get the residuals, you get 100% pass-through for them, and I've been working with them for a very long time. I know them very well.
Yep. We also have a SPIF program that we're releasing for this month and next month. So after the event, we'll certainly send that out to all of our TCG agents who are registered.
And this just shows you a screenshot of the quote tool. So it's literally on our website. You go to agent quote request. There's you put the agent ID, your name, your email, whoever your TCG channel manager is, the customer information, and keep in mind we don't send anything to the customer. It just goes to you as the sub-agent and the channel manager at TCG. It doesn't go to the customer at all. We just need it because if and when they do sign, since it's typically a quick sales process, that we already have that on file, so it just helps expedite the process. And that questions to consider when you're asking, when you're talking to your customers and see what they need. I mean, this is a great way to reach out again to your existing customer base or any new customers that you bring on, because you can say, hey, what do you have in disaster recovery plan right now? Do you have wireless failover? It's just another option. Does your company have, again, do they have diverse connectivity for voice and data? What kind of applications are you running? This is a really important one. When your internet goes down, how does that impact your business? Do you have any idea how much revenue loss there is? I mean, there's hard costs and there's soft costs. And a lot of it is both employee productivity. If your POS system goes down at a restaurant chain, you're losing a lot of money. And how do you calculate that? Do you understand the financial impact of this? How will you process credit cards if your POS system's down? And then just how much lost revenue will you have? These are just questions to not only engage with your customers and new customers, but just to be able to understand their business better. And try to make a case because a lot of times people think, oh, well, this is an added cost. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So, but then when it breaks, then they call you. Yeah. All the time. So it's just questions to consider when you're talking to your customers and potential customers.
All right, so I want to give you a little story. We have Texas Farm Bureau here. It's one of our larger customers, and they actually were signing up with us in 2017, right before Hurricane Harvey came through Texas, and we were actually in the process of deploying to them. Turns out that hurricane took out almost every single one of their internet locations in Texas, and they were running around like crazy trying to get these quotes out to their customers for all of their customers who had damage due to the storm. We were able to support that company with our service and keep them running in the event of their wireline connection and almost a total network failure. Not only did they praise us for our service, but what they did is they actually bought even more pieces of equipment for their mobile fleet for all of their trucks that they sent out to their customers to be able to assist them. So that was a very big success story for us. We're in Florida. We know that the storms come. They come almost every year, and maybe it's just a tropical storm, maybe it's a large-scale hurricane that actually hits us. This is a way to protect your customers, utilizing our service. When Irma came to us a couple years ago, we were able to protect our customers here in Florida. Almost every single one of our customers had an outage because their tree got ripped out in the front and their fiber was down. We were able to maintain their businesses with our service.
And another one actually in Florida that it just had, it's not on the slide, but Jacksonville Fire Credit Union, they had a huge outage. We just installed them the other day. We shipped it out, I think, overnight.
Yep.
And they had an outage like the next day, and they didn't even notice it. We let them know about it because we found out first because it already failed over, and they didn't even notice it. And they can't afford to be down for a multitude of reasons, not only financially, but compliance and security purposes. Any questions? Anything else?
You were mentioning something before initially about with the 2 SIM cards in there. You mentioned something about active scenarios or active passive. So basically, if there's an issue with signal for one carrier, it automatically fails over to the other one?
That would be an active configuration. So an active passive configuration is we have the devices staged for that secondary SIM. If there's an installation or some kind of outage that's preventing service for that secondary SIM, call us up to our support line. We'll get that secondary SIM activated for you. Typically, it's just a couple-minute process for it to do the over-the-air activation, and then the unit will auto recognize that that secondary SIM is on and be able to utilize service through that secondary provider.
It could be active, you'd have to have 2 SIMs.
Yes.
That's
Active at all times, that's all.
Yes. So.
So what's the charge? Is there a double the charge?
It is double the charge. So
Okay.
what we find for active deployments are typically kiosk deployments where there may not be a failover solution. We are the primary connection, and that gives that failover ability because now you have 2 carriers in that device, or you're doing pending construction where you don't have another connection available. Then we're also that failover within our product offering.
Okay. Well, so I'm interested in the LTE Advanced that you said throughput up to 60 megabytes per second.
Yes.
And that's up and down. That's really impressive.
We've actually seen it higher in real world scenarios. If you have a good signal strength and signal quality, we've actually seen north of 100 megabits per second with a Cat6 module. So the speeds are really there. The carriers are beefing up all of their infrastructure. They're deploying not only new tower paneling, but also these microcells to cover any gap. Well, not just 5G, but for LTE. So they're utilizing all their spectrum availability and also real estate to really promote this faster throughput. It's really being driven by the higher like the HD content for consumers, but it's benefiting businesses as well with that faster speed.
So do you see, and again, I guess with the advent of 5G and we're going to see like 1,000, gig speeds basically, do you see this type of solution possibly displacing wireline fiber circuits in the
That is
future?
an excellent point, and yes, we do. So what we're seeing is we see a trend that the wireline providers are going to outpace the wireless providers are going to outpace the wireline providers. You're going to have availability to multiple towers, unlike a single wire going to your building or premise that may have an outage. So you actually are inherently more protected utilizing a wireless solution over a wireline solution. And we see that that's going to be the growing trend. What we see for partners like you guys is getting in now is going to be an easy switchover for your customers when you already have equipment on-prem when that change comes, because you'll now have something that's already there. It's an easy step to migrate the equipment to the new 5G equipment, and everyone's happy. So that's where we see the trends in the market going.
Well, this is not a question. This is just more of a More of a shout out because, you know, I do have you guys at my brother's restaurant there, and Comcast goes down so often. Yeah, I get the notifications when it goes down, when the cellular comes up. And, you know, there was a few hiccups here and there. Dave's always, you know, been available and able to help. But it's really priceless when, you know, again, in a restaurant scenario, especially busy times, when shit's gonna go down, pardon my French, it's usually at the worst times, the busiest times. So not having that as a backup, you know, is a scary thing to think about. So it's definitely a very reliable service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Oh.
very much.
I'll take it off
Okay.
offline after this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll all wait for